Okay, Todd's controlling that too. I forgot. Thank you, Todd. Poor Todd, he's got about 10 different things to do. He needs to have the arms of octopus on there, you know. So thank you, Todd. I appreciate your help with that. I want to share with you, as I mentioned earlier, the power of small things. It's a wonderful opportunity we have every day to make a difference. And so I want to read again the passage out of Matthew chapter 10, verse 42. And whoever in the name of a disciple gives to one of these little ones even a cup of cold water to drink, truly I say to you, he shall not lose his reward. The Good News Bible says it this way. You can be sure that whoever gives even a drink of cold water to one of the least of these, my followers, because he is my follower, will certainly receive a reward. I recall reading about a college professor who had students do a study. And it was actually focused on a slum area, in a very poor area of the inner city. And they were to evaluate the situations of a couple of hungry high school boys, those that were suffering from hunger and that were in the inner city. And with the terms of, the idea behind it was they wanted to look at what were the possibilities that these coming out of this slum, out of this place where they were dealing with severe hunger, would even have an opportunity for a flourishing future. What are the likelihood that any of them will ever make it to a better place economically? Well, without exception, the conclusion was that, sadly, not even one of them would have any chance for what would be considered a worthwhile future. Decades later, another college professor was looking through the old files, and he happened to discover this study. And out of curiosity, directed a group of his students, his current day students, to try and, as a project, trace those who had been a part of that original study. Wanted to find out what happened to the slum children. Some had moved away, and of course some had passed away. But about 3/4 of them were still around, and the vast majority of them had actually accomplished remarkable careers. Some were medical doctors, attorneys. Some had done really well in business. But most of them had actually made it in the eyes of those around them. They had actually gotten to a place where they were sustainable. They were actually not just making a living, they were investing even in others, helping. Well, the professor, of course, as you would imagine, was somewhat shocked by this seemingly stark contrast to what the original study had indicated and to what the reality was. And so he had to go and do a little more research and find out what's the reason why all of this happened. And what was the key component of this dramatic turnaround. So he did some further interviews with the slum boys that were still alive, of course, and it revealed a pretty universal answer. One that was actually fairly simple, and it pointed to a certain person. There was a high school teacher that worked with these boys, one that spent time with them. And so as he got down and he had interviewed all these boys, it kept pointing back to this teacher. So, of course, he had to trace and track down the teacher, who happened to still be alive. And as he interviewed her, her answer was genuine, was uncomplicated, and was really meek in nature. According to her, she had done something to help change these boys that even you and I can do. You probably guessed it. She said this. She says, I simply love them. Simply love them. The power of small things. Brothers and sisters, love, God's kind of love, changed each and every one of our lives. And is the power to change those around us, and change the entire community, and I pray can change the world. Love. Power of small things. I'm going to ask a couple questions throughout this message. We call them stop and think questions. So I want you to think about the power of small things in your life. First question is this. what if we did small, every